Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Today is explanation of upcoming episode Throne of Seal based on novel. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. So let's start. In the next instant, he looked dumbstruck as the little light elemental fairy who, obviously suddenly attracted, flew towards Long Houchen. A smile appeared on Long Houchen's handsome face. As he calmly lifted his right hand, that small light elemental spiritual stove immediately landed on his palm. At such a close distance, he could see the little girl even more clearly. The light elemental spiritual stove was entirely snow white, as if she was sculpted from the purest rock crystal. Clad in a milky white skirt, her fair arms and slender legs were exposed. Her blonde hair was draped over her shoulders like a tiny waterfall, reaching down to her feet. A pair of translucent wings batted incessantly at her sides, while her long hair fluttered uncontrollably in the air. How is it possible? He's a knight, but I'm a priest. How can he have even better affinity with light than I do? His heart wasn't filled with jealousy, but with surprise. No matter how one looked at it, the final winner should be him. But that light elemental fairy didn't spare him a single glance from beginning to end, and flew almost directly to Long Houchen. Long Houchen's gentle eyes seemed to carry a tender affection. Using his fingers to caress her blonde hair, he gently told her, "Be at ease, I will honor my promise." The 19th heroic assassin revealed a faint smile, declaring, "Looks like our little fellow made her choice." This was a fair process, and the Assassin Temple doesn't wish to see any discontent behavior. All right, my duty is now done. Long Houchen, congratulations. Long Houchen raised his head and looked at the 19th heroic assassin, respectfully making his salutations. "Please pass my deepest thanks to the heroic senior, Mr. Heroic Assassin." After nodding to Long Houchen, the 19th heroic assassin immediately left in the direction of the two other heroic assassins, the killing intent in his eyes disappearing at the same instant. Gao Ingjie naturally aimed a glance at Long Houchen, saying with a smile, "Congratulations, Houchen. Let's leave. I'm accompanying you to your living quarters." As he said so, he intentionally glanced at the surrounding people that immediately seemed to be filled with envy. Suddenly, these envious looks were concealed completely. Although these youngsters were aware that they couldn't possibly fight over it by force, having Gao Ingjie at his side would naturally prevent any needless complications. Just as treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime, the current Long Houchen didn't dare to immediately assimilate the light elemental fairy. Sima Xian laughed quite loud. "Captain is really our captain. The thing that ought to be ours still came back to us. We have to celebrate that." Seeing Long Houchen receive the light elemental spiritual stove, the previously depressed members of the first squad suddenly had a 180 degrees change in their moods. But Long Houchen didn't say anything, leading his comrades back to their own living quarters. Following Long Houchen and the others with his eyes, Duanyi arrived at Yang Wenjiao's side, saying indifferently, "From the looks of it, the distance between him and us is just increasing each day." Yang Wenjiao replied with a sigh, "Everyone has their own opportunities, we cannot do anything about it. But we can still strive with our best efforts to make such opportunities appear to us as well." Duanyi smiled, "Well said. If you want to do something well, do it yourself. Personal strength will always be the basis of everything. Let's leave, we should also return. Let's take advantage of the holiday to train peacefully." Long Houchen and the others returned to their living quarters. As they went in, everyone couldn't help but rejoice in acclamation. So pleasing. Did you see the expressions on the others' faces? Especially that Luke 11 from the 4th squad, his complexion was so horrible that he looked like he was almost about to turn green with envy. Sima Xian said with a belly full of laughter, paying no attention at all to the fact the light elemental fairy didn't choose him. He originally didn't have any chances, with his cultivation being still at the 4th step. After she gave Long Houchen a glance, she suddenly turned around, flying to the sky with a little swish. Quickly, she went up to the roof. When her entire body bathed in sunlight, her glowing white took on a hint of gold. Floating in mid-air, she lowered her head, staring dully at the living quarters below, her pretty and large eyes softly blinking as if pondering about something. General Headquarters of the Assassin Temple. Listening to the 19th heroic assassin's report, Xingyu displayed a faint smile at the corners of his mouth. "It looks like this little guy understood my intention well. The 19th heroic assassin curiously asked, Hall Master, could it be that you knew in advance that the light elemental spiritual stove would choose Long Houchen? Xingyu nodded his head and replied, I naturally did. This was my tactic to kill two birds with one stone, displaying our goodwill in regards to these young children, while handing the spiritual stove to Long Houchen. No matter what, as her great-grandfather, I should give some presents to my own great-granddaughter. The stronger he grows, the better he will protect Kia. The 19th heroic assassin immediately asked, does this Long Houchen actually have such strong affinity with light? At that time, it seemed as if that light elemental spiritual stove had no hesitation at all when flying in his direction. The other youngsters were simply staring blankly, to the extent that we couldn't even carry out a real selection. Living quarters. Long Houchen received everyone's contribution points for this mission, before once again checking the total amount. This improved the mood of everyone greatly. They originally felt depressed about the fact that he released the light elemental fairy. During the mission, they killed 4 dark green dual-bladed demon, 6 8-eyed demonic eye soldiers, and a great amount of ordinary dual-bladed demons and demon eye soldiers, producing in total about 300 contribution points. This number in itself far surpassed the other team's scores. After all, the demons they faced were far stronger. In addition to this, they were awarded 700 contribution points this time, in addition to the 1,000 the bloodthirsty beta brought them. With a single mission, they unexpectedly gained close to 2,000 contribution points. After dividing them evenly, everyone had approximately 360 contribution points, and because of the equal splitting, there was at most a single contribution point of difference between everyone. Without counting Han Yu's score, the team already had a total of 2,520 points. Long Houchen pulled Kia back to their bed. Kia, how have you been feeling today? Is there any place that makes you feel unwell? Kia lightly shook her head, leaning on Long Houchen's shoulder and replying in a low voice, I got used to it long ago. You don't need to worry. Actually, although I am somewhat affected by the loss of my sense of smell, I can still endure it. Long Houchen exclaimed, you have to keep your promise. Until you recover your sense of smell, I won't let you take any risk. Even though I have never undergone the training related to the spiritual stove of samsara, I can imagine that since you are already blind, the further loss of your sense of smell will strongly impair your ability to gather information from your surroundings. This is bound to affect your strength greatly. Listen to me and have a good rest here. I promised that I would protect you for all my life. Kia revealed a soft smile, I will listen to you. When she was in private with Long Houchen, all her coldness would turn into tenderness, just as if she was a sort of sweet little cat. Just at that time, Kia's ears suddenly twitched, and Long Houchen unconsciously lifted his head, because a twitching sensation appeared in his body. A small chink appeared on the cloth surrounding the bed, and a white silhouette stealthily came in. Long Houchen stopped Kia, who was about to lift her hand. Don't worry, it's that light elemental fairy. That's right, it was precisely the little light elemental fairy that suddenly appeared on their bed couch. Maybe due to the sunlight she absorbed, she looked better than before. At least, she didn't look as dispirited. Gazing at Long Houchen, she floated in mid-air and rested her chin on her hands. Aside from her extremely small size, she really looked identical to humans. Feeling her familiar aura, Long Houchen smiled, lifting up his right hand and waving to her. The light elemental fairy folded her small wings, quietly falling on Long Houchen's palm. A soft white radiance continuously twinkled on her body, and Long Houchen's scorching sensation just became even more violent. How is it that you came back? Do you still feel unwell and need my help? As he asked, Long Houchen quickly let out a drip of pure light element essence. The mild golden liquid circulated to his palm, and the light elemental fairy immediately opened her eyes wide, using her small hands, without hesitation, to take some of the pure liquid light essence, and drink it in a hurry. Immediately, her pure white body was covered by a layer of gold, and her golden eyes accordingly lit up. Her originally hesitant look towards Long Houchen instantly became a pleasantly surprised one. The light elemental fairy mumbled a series of words in a language Long Houchen didn't understand, which seemed to be an elven language. Immediately, she hugged one of Long Houchen's fingers, and bit it with strength. It was a pity that the light elemental fairy's physique was weak. She was unable to pierce the skin of Long Houchen's finger, because his external spiritual energy made it too thick. The light elemental fairy immediately became impatient, hopping up and down on Long Houchen's palm, her pleasantly surprised look turning into an excited and eager one. "What are you doing? Why are you biting my finger?" Long Houchen asked with some curiosity. On his side, Kia also looked surprised. "She's biting your finger. Could it be that she needs your blood? Why would an elemental fairy need a human's blood?" It could only be for one reason, to conclude a contract with him. Long Houchen gave a surprised look to the light elemental fairy on his palm. "Could it be that you want to stay by my side?" The light elemental fairy nodded vigorously without hesitation. Looking at her, it seemed as though she couldn't be more willing to do just that. Just as if to her, staying by Long Houchen's side would be greatly convenient. Now it was Long Houchen's turn to be pleasantly surprised. Even though he restrained his internal longing and set this little fellow free, he was still a knight, and as such, how could he not wish to obtain something like a light element spiritual stove? At the moment, this small light elemental fairy had quite a serious face. The white radiance surrounding her body vanished, and pure golden symbols appeared. Long Houchen felt as if the scorching feeling in his body was affected by the symbols, immediately increasing to its peak. He couldn't help but shake intensely, his entire body swaying, but because of Kia's supporting hand, he didn't fall down. On his chest, a pure white brilliance emerged, immediately turning his clothes into dust. The brilliance formed a 90 centimeters long little cauldron that started floating before his chest. It was the saint's spiritual stove. Shutting her two eyes, the light elemental fairy gave the image of a devout young girl, her two hands folded in front of her chest, calmly floating in midair. The pure gold color and the paler golden color finally merged perfectly into a single entity, turning into an extremely limpid golden color. This golden symbol penetrated Long Houchen's chest once again, gently rising up, before stopping after reaching the space between Long Houchen's eyebrows. At this moment, the others of the first squad suddenly awoke with a start, because of the sudden burst of such strong light essence. The ones who felt it first were Sima and Han Yu. Both of them being light element users as well, they immediately noticed that the dense light attribute internal spiritual energy in their bodies was gathering 2 times faster, twice as fast than normal. What's going on? Wang Yuan immediately picked up her divine soul shield. Don't move. He is okay. That light elemental spiritual stove came back again, and took the initiative to initiate a contract with him. Kia didn't fall down after being shot at, and was now standing on the ground, preventing the others from approaching the bed. At that time, everyone could only see bright light bursting out from behind the curtains, making the light essence in the whole living quarters especially plentiful. Han Yu suddenly remarked, "Sima, hurry up and cultivate. By relying on that dense light essence, maybe you'll break through your bottleneck." Just at that moment, Hao Yue, who had slept at the side of the room, suddenly lifted his heads. His 6 eyes glinting purple, a shapeless terrible aura burst forth from his body. The mythic mirror image treasure pig held against Chen Ying's chest slipped away from her embrace, hiding baying Chen Ying's legs. Everyone including Kia felt a terrible force, and stared completely shocked at Hao Yue. Hao Yue's terrible intent wasn't directed at them, but he roared 3 times toward the curtain in front of Long Houchen, robustly coming to his feet. Having already slept for quite a long time, as soon as he stood up, everyone could vaguely feel that Hao Yue's body grew quite bigger, but the even more distinct feature was that he seemed even more robust than before. At that moment, the purple symbols seemed to come alive. An ice-cold, terrifying and overbearing aura was continuously released from within them. Long Houchen had already come back to his senses. He would never have expected that his saint's spiritual stove wouldn't obstruct, but help his fusion with the light element fairy. But his blood contract with Hao Yue, on the other hand, would actually have a strong resistance against the fusion. Therefore, the light elemental fairy didn't have the slightest hesitation, and immediately chose to fuse with Long Houchen. The golden symbol produced after the fusion was the contract mark between the two of them. To an elemental fairy, this contract mark in particular had a different meaning compared to ordinary spiritual stoves. Clearly, in his capacity of sign of light, Long Houchen would very possibly be able to absorb other spiritual stoves in the future, and maybe even another light elemental spiritual stove. For this reason, she wanted to give her contract the greatest priority possible, choosing to integrate into the cavity between Long Houchen's eyebrows. She still remembered that during the few days before Long Houchen absorbed the elemental fairy, he told her every day about duty. That everyone had different duties, and their own heavy burdens to shoulder. The only difference was that these burdens were more or less visible depending on the person. Older sister, how is it that you're not saying anything? Is it because you are wearing a veil on your face? In a 5-year-old state, Xing Lingxin kept questioning her, full of curiosity. He asked her several questions in a row, but Kia didn't show any reaction. Xing Lingxin clearly felt that she was kind of uninterested, and hurried to run to Lan Yenyu's side. Elder sister, this big sister doesn't speak at all. Can you play with me? Holding her husband's broad hand, Lan Yenyu couldn't help but fall in his arms and cry loudly. Such a heroic husband having unexpectedly been reduced to this state by the aftereffects of the spiritual stove, how could she possibly feel all right? Take good care of him, I am leaving first. Tapping the blue cane to the ground, Caia shot out like a bullet. As she used her greatest speed to leave this place, she suddenly discovered that the hate she felt for her parents seemed to have weakened greatly. Leaving the courtyard and taking the route to return to the living quarters, Kia discovered for some reason that the oppressive feelings she had deep inside also seemed to have lessened greatly, to the extent that she felt a bit more worryless and relaxed. Except from the time she was together with Long Haochen, this was the first time this kind of emotion appeared in her ever since she became the saint daughter of Samsara. At that time, she couldn't help but remember Long Haochen's words, forgiveness is about forgiving other people, but also about forgiving yourself. At the time Kia returned to the living quarters, she wasn't aware that the expression in her eyes was gentler. However, no one in the living quarters paid attention to Kia's changes. She herself was surprised upon returning, because she felt to her astonishment that the light essence in the living quarters had just become even denser. Its level of purity astounded her greatly. At that time, everyone in the living quarters had their eyes stuck to the sunlight fire released from Long Haochen's body. And compared to before Kia left, the great difference was that the sunlight fire on Long Haochen's body had now surprisingly taken shape, unexpectedly condensing into flames that gave off a faintly visible appearance of angel. What happened? Kia asked Jiao Yingjie with some nervosity. Jiao Yingjie replied with a rough voice, if I haven't guessed wrongly, the light elemental fairy that fused with Haochen should be undergoing a process of evolution. He was right, the light elemental fairy was indeed evolving. At the time the light elemental fairy fused with Long Haochen, she felt Long Haochen's physique as sign of light, and released all her physical and mental capabilities, planning to fuse completely into Long Haochen's body. Although she was frightened for a brief moment by Hao Yue, this couldn't affect the light elemental fairy's feelings of acknowledgement for Long Haochen. Just like a light unicorn had by nature kind-hearted traits, a sign of light was bound to have an easy-to-get-close to nature and a heart of gold. This made the light elemental fairy throw away all her worries. This implied that Long Haochen's light elemental fairy started her second evolution. This was the sign of light, the formidable sign of light. And this holy fire persisted until the 49th day. Seated cross-legged, Long Haochen suddenly showed signs of opening his eyes. He opened his mouth, and suddenly, the holy fire surrounding him was inhaled into his body, consequently weakening the light aura in the living quarters. The abrupt change immediately awoke everyone from their state of cultivation, there staring at the same time at Long Haochen. Along with the continuous weakening of the holy fire, Long Haochen's body gradually became visible. At this very moment, with a bright spark of light from his chest, a 1/3 of a meter long golden radiance appeared in front of him, and with a sharp and clear incantation, the bright light covered Long Haochen's body, forming a golden armor, solving the awkward situation of Long Haochen's burned clothes. And from his chest, the perfectly fused light elemental fairy appeared. Only, she had currently become completely different from before. At her back, her 2 transparent wings had currently evolved into 2 pairs, making her flying silhouette looking even more stable. But the greatest change could be seen in her limpid golden eyes. In them, all traces of gloom and weakness had completely disappeared. Her pupils were shining brilliantly, giving off a noble and sacred feel, without looking arrogant, but instead gentle, as if golden ripples were overflowing from therein. Lightly landing on Long Haochen's shoulder, and speaking a few words in fairy language before touching Long Haochen's cheek, she currently looked extremely satisfied. Jiao Yingjie declared to him, with a smile, you are finally awake. Nonetheless, you're giving me too many good surprises. The light elemental fairy unexpectedly evolved twice. Let alone having seen this, I have never even heard about this kind of thing happening before. It looks like the relation between the two of you is not an ordinary one. With a lift of his hand, the mentally connected light elemental fairy flew to his palm. Eyeing the beautiful fairy of light, Long Houchen smiled. She told me that her name is Yating. Congratulations for having obtained your second spiritual stove, Master. Han Yu said to Long Houchen with a smile. Chen Yinga frowned with concern, but I didn't break through. Why is it that I don't have light attribute? Wang Yuan replied in disdain, you summoners are existences close to the non-elemental type. Since you can summon creatures of so many different kinds, what kind of element would you want? Having been influenced by Long Houchen's holy aura, Chen Yinga still made quite fast progress. A few dozen days ago, she already reached the bottleneck of the 5th step. Unfortunately, she just hadn't Sima Xian's luck. These dozen days, she had been unsuccessful in breaking through to the 5th step. Having been unable from beginning to end to make her internal spiritual energy liquid, she was now the only one who was still at the 4th step in the team. How could she not feel hurried? With a tired face, Lin Xin sat on his bed. Captain, it would be so great if you could really use holy fire. Then, my fabrication of pills would be a lot easier. I'm just tired to death, lately. At that moment, he said to Long Houchen, you are finally awake. Although you missed 40 days of the competition, it looks like you made considerable progress over this period. I suggest you take note of your comrades' progress, while I go and see if there's a need for you to take care of a mission. Over the course of these days, the other demon hunt squads haven't been staying idle. From my estimate, in regard to the amount of contribution points, you don't hold the upper hand any longer. Yes. Long Houchen replied, sending off Gao Ingjie from the living quarters together with the others. As the time they spent together increased, they felt even more admiration for this leader. During the time Long Houchen fused with the light elemental stove Yating, Gao Ingjie had paid close attention to them. Kia always stood behind Long Houchen, and when Long Houchen turned his head to see Gao Ingjie off, he noticed to his astonishment that Kia seemed to be quite different. Her coldness receded quite a bit and the look in her eyes have softened. In the past days, Kia went out a total of 3 times. The second time she met Xing Lingxin, he had recovered 10 years of his memories. And the third time, Xing Lingxin just happened to have recovered the memories of the time when Kia was 3 years old. When Kia saw Xing Lingxin, who had recovered a little more than 20 years of his memories, he was unexpectedly crouched down, and was crying bitterly, even losing his voice from it. But from his mouth, she was only able to hear a single word, and that was her name. Sima Xian murmured, it's 3162, the 6th rank of the 5th step. Captain, you are already a 6th ranked Earth Knight. Let alone the others, Long Houchen was also astonished. He honestly didn't expect that, with his fusion with Yating, he would actually directly gain more than 1,000 units of spiritual energy. With such a boost, his cultivation level became the highest among all of his team members. Just like Sima Xian said, Long Houchen's improvements were massive. But this was closely related to his special physique, as the sign of light. His fusion with Yating produced 3 enormous bursts of pure light essence. Over the course of 40 days of the fusion, Long Houchen's body as the sign of light had been completely aroused. And he didn't know that every time Yating evolved, his own innate internal energy would increase by a level. Thus, Long Houchen's innate internal spiritual energy had reached 99, which was only second to Kia's score of 100. Wang Yuan progressed from 2160 to 2210, Lin Xin's internal spiritual energy only increased by 20, reaching 2405. As for Kia, her progress was not small. As the saint daughter of Samsara, her innate internal spiritual energy being 100, her cultivation speed was by nature not comparable to anyone else. After 2 months' time, her internal spiritual energy increased by 180, making it reach 2770, only second to Long Houchen's 3162. So far, Long Houchen's cultivation speed was already the best of the team. Although this time's increase was directly linked to his luck, his status within the team rose once again. More importantly, after possessing the light elemental fairy Yating, his future progress speed would increase to some extent. Having entered the 6th rank of the 5th step, Long Houchen's understanding about the internal spiritual energy was even greater. As everyone received the pills Lin Xin made, her look becoming passionate upon looking at him, Wang Yuanyuan couldn't help but declare, Lin Xin, you are really a genius. As time passed, Lin Xin's utility as an alchemist increased unceasingly. Yinga, this is for you. Lin Xin threw a little cloth bag to Chen Yinga. Chen Yinga caught it, showing a puzzled reaction. What is it? Are there pills inside? Lin Xin shook his head, replying, foolish girl, these are magical crystals. If your pig doesn't have them, how will he have fighting strength? I purchased them at the auction house. One at the 6th step, and the dozen of others are coming from magical beasts at the 5th step. Conserve them well, these things were just so expensive. Half of the money I made was used for these, and the rest to purchase material. Well, thank you, big brother Lin. Chen Yinga blinked her limpid eyes at Lin Xin, looking at him with soft eyes. That's enough. I did so for our team. Younger sister, although you are pretty, for the safety of my life, please don't look at me with this kind of eyes. Thank you, big brother Lin. Chen Yinga blinked her limpid eyes at Lin Xin, looking at him with soft eyes. That's enough. I did so for our team. Younger sister, although you are pretty, for the safety of my life, please don't look at me with this kind of eyes. I don't want this young Wenjiao to aim at my life. Chen Yinga took the magical crystals with great delight, and reacted with a snort. What's up with this young Wenjiao, would he dare try to control me? I don't like him, I rather like Sis Yuanyuan. I'm already having perfect compatibility with Sis Yuanyuan, who cares about him? Sima Xian coughed violently a few times, shooting Wang Yuanyuan a glance. What perfect compatibility, with another girl? That would just be a waste of resources. Wang Yuanyuan's expression remained the same. What's good with you? Sima Xian glanced at Lin Xin with a mean smile, saying, tell me, if I were to sell our information about what Yinga just told you to young Wenjiao, how many contribution points would I get for it? Chen Yinga leisurely reacted, pleasantly saying, exchange it for the amount you want, but in any case, I want half of it. Long Haochen accepted the pills with a smile. Their first squad had already been established quite some time ago. Along with the deepening of everyone's relations with each other, everyone already blended their own characters into the group. And their strength as a whole increased without obstruction. Haochen. Quickly follow me to the city walls, everyone. Just at the time everyone was chatting, Gao Yingjia's pressed voice sounded from outside. Having seen Gao Yingjia's serious expression, everyone followed hurriedly. They didn't think much of it, simply assuming that it would be at most the start of a new operation. Follow me. Long Haochen didn't dare slack off, commanding his companions to follow him rapidly. He didn't know what happened, but it was definitely not good news. Kia's sense of smell had already recovered, so she naturally followed Long Haochen out of the living quarters. The group of 7 was led to the city walls under Gao Yingjia's command. But when they arrived at the city walls, Long Haochen discovered that the whole Exorcist city's walls were astonishingly calm. The other 9 demon hunt squads had already arrived at the city walls and were in charge of the defense of a 100 meters broad area. Seeing the arrival of Long Haochen's group, they naturally let them handle the defense of an area of a dozen meters. Long Haochen looked at them closely and discovered to his astonishment that some changes appeared on the demon hunters of the other 9 demon hunt squads. Having gone through a lot of hardships, they looked a lot more steady and less scatterbrained than before. Clearly, over the course of these 50 days, they all had made important progress. In terms of experience, they already surpassed the first demon hunt squad. Gao Yingjie stood at Long Haochen's side, pointing ahead, and told them in a deep voice, look. Looking at the situation outside the walls, Long Haochen, who previously looked relaxed, immediately became shocked. It wasn't only the Exorcist mountain pass that was calm, but the outside was also extremely calm. But it wasn't because the demons' main forces were withdrawing, rather the opposite. The demons' main forces were actually arranged neatly at the entrance of Exorcist Mountain Pass. In silence, an enormous somber and desolate mass was advancing continuously, charging forward in the direction of the Exorcist Mountain Pass. Today, the demons were against all expectations well organized. Right in the front, dual-bladed demons formed dozens of square-shaped formations, and from the looks of it, their numbers exceeded at least 5,000. Behind these dual-bladed demons were 10 groups of 500 demonic eye soldiers. Then, at their back were Luke's stealthy demons. And as the formation progressed in depth, stronger demon tribes were present. Far in the back, Long Houchen faintly saw a dozen of colossus standing in silence. Even with such distance from the Exorcist Mountain Pass, these large demon silhouettes could vaguely be seen, their height actually surpassing 50 meters. Right in the middle of the demon air force were 10 silhouettes, with a height above 30 meters. In a crazy way, they were black gigantic dragons. Seeing such a scene, Long Houchen's group couldn't help but take a deep breath. What were these demons planning? Why did the whole bunch come out for? More importantly, there were a lot of powerful demons who had never appeared on the battlefield before. In other words, this was the real main force of the demons. The tense atmosphere encircled the Exorcist Mountain Pass. Despite the fact that this mountain pass defense lasted for 1,000 years, the demon main army's battle formation this time was unprecedentedly powerful. In case they initiated the assault, a bloody battle was fated to happen. Everyone clenched their hands together around their weapons, silently waiting for them to approach. Long Houchen's group didn't dare to slack off, and arranged themselves in a proper defensive formation. In this large battlefield, their individual strength seemed negligible, but anyhow, they would do the best they could to kill many demons. This wasn't a question of contribution points, or at least not anymore. Defending the Exorcist Mountain was extremely important, involving the entire humanity. The atmosphere wasn't only tense on the city walls, but even in the high city gate tower. Xing Lingxin already recovered all his memories, calmly gazing at the scene from above. At his side were all the high-ranking military officers. All of them wore serious expressions. This time the opposing demon army was unprecedentedly formidable. They were obviously not only coming to acquire food for their population. Xing Lingxin revealed some doubt in his eyes. Have the demon forces gone crazy? How could they gather so many army forces? Even the demon god emperor's personal soldiers, the black dragons, appeared. Have they made their preparations to go all out and destroy us at any cost? At this very moment, an aged voice sounded at Xing Lingxin's back. There can only be two reasons why the demon forces did so. The first possibility is, as you guessed, that the demons plan to go all out to break through our Exorcist Mountain Pass. If things are so, just let them come. Since our Exorcist Mountain Pass could last for 1,000 years, protected by our assassin temple, I don't dare say that we will surely stop the demons' all-out offense, but they will be bound to pay an extremely disastrous price. Xing Yu stepped forward unhurriedly, coming to Xing Lingxin's side. Seeing his appearance, the nervous high-ranking officer's expression distinctly loosened. Having a powerhouse of the ninth step keeping watch over the city gave them, as well as the soldiers, a great boost to their self-confidence. Xing Lingxin didn't make his salutations to his great-grandfather. He was now the highest-ranking officer in the city, and would do everything to shoulder his duty. What about the second possibility? Lingxin asked. Xing Yu replied, as for the second possibility, it is that the demons' higher-ups came. Every time they had important matters to discuss with us in the past, they would assume this kind of formation to terrify us with their military power, and increase the probability of success of their negotiations. Hearing his grandfather's words, Xing Lingxin immediately had a flash of understanding. Since this is the case, there should be higher odds for the second possibility. According to all the intelligence we gathered, the demons didn't show any signs of doing large-scale operations. If they really went all out to launch an all-out war, then the pressure would surely not come only to our Exorcist Mountain Pass. Xing Yu nodded his head in praise. That's right. Since this is the case, we just don't know for now what these demons are aiming for. Having brought innumerable forces to launch a surprise attack, let them bring it on. I just wonder who came this time. From my estimate, it is at least a demon god ranked within their top 10. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to arrange such a formation. Xing Lingxin suddenly remarked, Heroic Senior, about the assassin temple over there. Xing Yu nodded his head to him, giving a reply, rest at ease, we already made preparations. If they really came for an all-out attack, my assassin temple will not end up decimated. Xing Lingxin loosened his breath. Now, all that's left to do is to wait. At the time his grandson spoke, suddenly, far in the rear of the battle formations, 3 massive light pillars rocketed to the sky, bringing strong radiances and spiritual energy eruptions. Even if they were quite distant from the city, everyone in it could still see it. The brilliances of the demon god's pillars. In the instant, those 3 demon god pillars' radiance erupted, the formerly silent demon troops immediately bellowed out. That was a great army of 100,000. With these simultaneous roars, in the Exorcist Mountain Pass, the earth shook and the ground trembled. Even 100 generals would only be able to change expressions in front of such a massive force. But their difference to ordinary people was that the latter would fall weakly to the ground while the first fought. These soldiers who went through hundreds of battles just held their weapons tightly, their blood boiling in front of such ferocious enemies. Those three demon gods were precisely the blazing demonic lion Alosa, the demonic winged mad bull Zagan, as well as the 70th demon god, the evil demon rider Seer. Previously, these three demon gods came in an attempt to handle the brilliant Angel Knight regiment, so Long Houchen naturally recognized them in a glance. They indeed deserved to be called demon gods. Their aura was unexpectedly able to cause 100,000s to be in such a state of excitement. This was Long Houchen's way of thinking. But in the city's tower, the face of the heroic assassin Xing Yu changed, not good. Don't tell me. Don't tell me that he came. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.